everything from governments and multinational corporations to aid agencies, NGOs, charities, celebrities, and social entrepreneurs. The goal is to help, but the incentives and the interplay of these different components ended up creating a global poverty industry. Perhaps the best way to understand it is through what one of the founders of sociology, French sociologist Émile Durkheim, called a social fact, a broad tapestry of norms, assumptions, and social and economic institutions that transcend any one individual or organization. The social fact puts constraints on how we think and act, leading us to take many things for granted. It becomes simply the way things are done. This doesn't mean there is never innovation or attempts to fix the system. People are always coming up with creative ideas and approaches. The trouble is that most of the innovation takes place within the assumptions, beliefs, and values of the social fact. At its core, the social fact situates the poor as the other, as objects of charity, rather than as the subjects, the active protagonists in their own story of development. People have the internal capacity to rise out of poverty, but they do so only when they have certain key things many of us take for granted, like legal protection from theft and violence, justice in the courts, the ability to get title to one's land, freedom to start and register a business, and links to wider circles of exchange. The difficulty is that this ladder to prosperity is missing in many places around the world, and the current system creates incentives for governments not to build it.
Whenever you have an aid agreement, those consultants come into the country, and they don't work for the country, they work for the foreign aid establishment. And so what you find is that the aid establishment severs the link between the leader of a country and his people. Because you've got all these consultants running around doing their thing, purportedly to work for the people, but in reality, their masters are in Washington and Tokyo and London and Paris. So that's what's part of what's broken with aid.
Poor people have become the clients of a vast global poverty industry. If they climb out of poverty, the industry becomes obsolete. So a question we need to ask ourselves is this: who benefits the most from the way things are currently set up? The people we are trying to help, or the people who work in the poverty industry?